My parents are stalking me, and it's because they say God told them to. Hi there, I am 24F and I live on my own out of my parents' house. I have a bit of a situationship going on with my friend. We will call him David 24M. We had a fling a few months ago, and now it's kinda happening again. It started out as just hanging out and enjoying David's company. Then it slowly turned into more again. The thing is, my parents knew about the first fling. David used to be inseparable from my dad. They were like father and son in a way, until David and I had our fling. Now my dad is trying to control him, telling him he has to have no contact with me outside of a group chat that we're all in. We think that this is stupid. A few weeks ago, we were hanging out and we went to Five and Below to get some snacks and just hang out. And then while we were there, my parents walked in. They don't live in the same city as me. I live about 20 minutes away from them, and they just randomly showed up at the store right by my house. They claimed they were there to find batteries. At that point, my dad confronted David and said that he told him not to be around me, and he told me he isn't going to care anymore, and not to go crying to him when I get my heart broken. Later, my mom texted me saying it was totally the Holy Spirit revealing that something was happening so that they can intervene. I'm kinda glad that happened though, because after David and I left, that opened up a conversation about what's going on between us. We both enjoy our company and we both have feelings for each other, but we are taking it slow. While we were talking, my dad sent me a 3-page essay on why I'm stupid for not doing as he says and that he is no longer invested. He told me David only wants me for one thing and he doesn't care about me as much as he does. And that if David is in love with me, he would ask him for permission to date his daughter and play by his rules. David told me he does really care about me and that it is a lie that he doesn't. Anyways, we decided to continue hanging out, especially since my dad said he no longer cares. Now, we both have annual passes to Disneyland, so we decided to go together after work. While we were there, my mom and dad texted me asking if I was at Disneyland. I ignored their text messages. We were there until closing, and as we were walking out, my dad walked up to us with a Starbucks bag and asked to talk. David kept walking and said no, and of course, me wanting to keep the peace, I begged David to, and he said no. I told him I'm his ride, and he said he would just get an Uber, and I told him no, so I just left my parents there, and then I left. I cried in the car, and David told me it's not my fault. While I was in the car, I texted my mom how she knew I was there, and she said, "God is watching," and I asked her again how she knew, and she said she would meet me at my house and tell me, and I said no. "You will not meet me at my house, that's weird, Mom. How did you know I was at Disneyland?" And she stopped messaging me, and then my dad sent me this. "OP, if you want to know how we knew that you were there, you can talk to us in person. We brought peace and we tried to be loving, even though I knew David was doing stuff that he said he wouldn't do. I just want him to care for you as much as I do and your mother does. But you're gonna find out, honey, and it's really sad. He had every opportunity right there to confess his love for you and to ask us for space. We could have had a good discussion, but instead, he was a coward and ran away. From here on out, you are not to come to my home. We can meet in public to talk about how we knew you were at Disneyland because we had every intention of telling you, and that was going to be a part of the conversation. I've never lied to you, and I never will. I do not have anything to hide. That conversation could have been great, and we're still willing to have it, but David sadly is not. I did nothing to him to deserve the treatment that we got from him, and I've never treated him any other way than I would treat a good son. I hope and I pray that he doesn't do what I know he's going to do. Wolves come into the sheep, and they separate the sheep from the flock, and they devour the sheep, but the good shepherd will protect you, and if David ever was a sheep, he will listen to the voice of God, the people that loved him and cherished him. I love you, OP, and I wish nothing but the best for you. If you want to talk, we are willing to talk to you about anything you want to know. And that was the text message my dad sent me. Then I replied with, "Dad, I don't expect him to be in love with me. That's way too soon. And if you don't want to hide the truth, just explain how you knew I was there. I will not be meeting in person for a conversation that can be had over text message." Then my dad replied with, "Then don't meet with me. That is how it's going to come out because you need to see my demeanor and everything. And shame on you guys for trying to point the finger back at us. You guys are the ones that are not doing this right and hiding. Literally every box that was checked for you to like David was erased by David. All the things that you liked about him are now gone, and it was by David's own hand. From now on, do whatever you want, and I'm cutting this pain off. I mean it. Don't come by the house because we will not be able to support your drama any longer. You're gonna have to learn the hard way again. The only difference is now your mother and I are numb and we don't feel anything. God will show the truth, but I wanted to make sure you weren't hurt in the process." Now look, I don't care if I don't meet with them or not. I can't handle the helicopter parenting anymore. and I feel that anytime I have ever brought a boy around my dad, he has to place himself in the middle, forcing the guy out. The guys that have been okay with it in the past end up not working out because of my fear that if my dad can control him now, my whole future will still be controlled by him. If I don't do it their way, then I'm doing it wrong. I really like David, and he likes me. I'm 24 years old, and for once I have a guy that doesn't run away from me because of my crazy, super involved parents. I don't know what to do. What I'm concerned about is how my parents followed me there and why. I just don't know what to do. Any advice is greatly appreciated. Thank you for reading as much as you did, and please, any suggestions would help because I feel alone right now. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, OP, check your car for a tracking device. If they have keys to your place, change the locks. There is something very wrong with them. This level of stalking and harassment is concerning. Adding into the religious aspect of it, they sound unhinged. So, this all happened last night, so I'm going to be spending the day looking for anything like that. They don't have any keys to my place, thankfully. Then user 2 commented and said, Are you 100% absolutely positively sure that they don't have keys to your house? Was there any opportunity for them to get your keys long enough to have a copy made? I would change the locks as a precaution. Yes, I am sure. I have roommates and they know boundaries when it comes to that. Just when it involves a boy, they are gung-ho in knowing where I am and being in my business. But when it comes to my household and work, they keep away. Then user 3 commented and said, OP, there is a tracking device somewhere on one of you. Do they not want you to ever have any relationship? Or to just force you into one of their choosing? Mainly, it's my dad about the relationship thing. He wants it heavily chaperoned. Like his way, he wants it the first 3 dates are double dates with my parents. He tries to enforce no kissing. He gets very personal with the guy, asking him questions like if he is still a virgin or not, and asking him what his intentions are with me. He will basically tell the guy what to do in the relationship, and if the guy doesn't, then he is a coward and isn't good enough for me. If he doesn't do what my dad tells him to. I let my dad have it his way once, and the guy at the time was really nice. After we got the green light to date, I realized, wow, I don't like this guy. I wanted to end it, but I felt bad. For years after I ended it, my dad would tell me I needed to bite the bullet and settle for that guy. My dad said he liked him because he respected him. No, he liked that guy because he could control him and in turn me. If I don't do it his way, I'm called horrible names, cut off, but not really because he can't control me if he cuts me off. It's a thing I've dealt with my whole life. And then finally, user 4 commented and said, OP, your parents are wrong about everything. Go on the internet and search manipulative abuse, coercive control like in cults. David is making appropriate sense. You don't have to choose between them. You do, however, have to do the adulting work of separating and individuating. You trying to force him to talk to your parents at Disney was effed up. You're right, I know. I just get scared. I didn't want to talk to them either. I'm learning, though, not to cave in, but it's hard after 24 years of control. I'm glad he didn't because it showed me I don't have to if I don't want to either. Edit. Next day. Thank you to everyone who gave advice and suggestions. I decided I'm going to let myself settle for a few days. I'm going to agree to hear my parents out just to know how they got my location. As controlling as they are, I still love them, and I can say with certainty they have always been honest. My dad said he will tell me how they found out I was there in person. I'm also going to give myself a few days to get my own nerves and emotions down, and I will post an update when that happens. Honestly, thank you to everyone. It's nice to see I'm not crazy and that I'm not a terrible person. It's reassuring to see that this isn't normal behavior, and I can't thank you all enough that it gave me a bit of peace of mind, to be honest. Thank you everyone for giving advice to a no-name person on Reddit. Edit number 2. I texted my dad and told him I'd be willing to talk within the next few days. He then told me I need to find a new phone provider. This is the last bill I have connected with my folks. They pay for it in their account and I just pay them back for my line every month. But I think that cancels out them trying to track me via phone provider, especially now since this is another attempt to control by using fear of cutting off a service I can very easily get on my own. I looked for any AirTags, I couldn't find anything. And he still refuses to tell me how he tracked me unless I meet with them, my mother, and our pastor at church. And for those asking about the church, I've known this church for 16 years. My pastor has stuck up for me when I needed him. He stuck up for me when I was being physically abused and brought that to a stop. My dad is the uber religious person. My pastor, though, has always put him in his place. Just to clarify that aspect a bit more, it's people I trust to look out for my well-being. Update, next day. So I met with them today, and my pastor and his wife had my back 100%. My dad told me how they found me. I guess I was still sharing my location with him on my phone through messages. He said that God revealed that he still had my location. My parents then drove to my house to see if my car was there. They saw David's car there. We carpooled to Disney, and then they waited outside of Disney until we left. I told them that is freaking weird and that makes me uncomfortable. They said they did it out of love because they were concerned. And basically, my pastor and his wife are 100% behind my back regarding dating who I want and not letting my parents decide. I should have the opportunity to decide if I like the guy first one-on-one, then bring him to meet my parents. It's a little different because we all have known David for years, but still, I have the right to decide when my parents will be involved. And my dad did not like this. He said he would leave the church and then blocked me on all of his social medias. He said he can't stand around and wait for my heart to get broken, and the whole time he was trashing on David. He called me a few names that were extremely hurtful, and I was glad to see the pastor had my back. They told me I am no longer under his roof, and I'm not doing anything wrong. The conversation ended with my dad claiming he wants to go no contact, which I'm sure he won't follow through on. It sucks though because I love my parents, but in my dad's eyes, if he can't have control over this aspect, I don't get him at all. And that's probably how it's going to be for a while. Thank you guys. Then in the comments section, OP elaborated on memories of her parents and said, I do have lots of great memories with them. That's how it is living with a dad with crazy bipolar tendencies. One second we would be laughing and having a great time. The next I would be getting beat because he thought I was copying an attitude. My mom just let it happen because she was just as scared. Then OP elaborated on how she didn't even think to check her location on her phone and said, I stopped sharing on my old phone. While I was out with him before all this drama, my phone broke and I had to get a new one. I was in a bad part of town and I shared my location with my dad because although he is a POS, he would be the first person who would show up if I needed him. I accidentally shared indefinitely and not just for the day. Yeah, dumb mistake on my end, but it's not shared anymore and I am zero contact. You live and learn. And then finally, one user commented and said, OP's dad sounds like a perv, and OP strikes me as kind of dumb. So, I used to get beat. I used to get my face pounded, my fingers bit, my hair pulled out of my head. When he stopped beating me, I was conditioned to be okay with the controlling nature because at least I wasn't getting hit anymore. It's difficult, but I'm learning it is not okay. It's just hard when that's all you've known your whole life. So yeah, I'm kinda dumb, but I'm walking away now. Update number 2, 3 months later. Well, I didn't think I would be here again. If any of you saw my original post back near November, I think that has the whole context and backstory of it. But long story short, the guy I was seeing, we decided to be just friends. And he is honestly my best friend. I was sad about it though, and I told my dad that me and him were done in that regard. And he actually acted like a dad and comforted me. It was nice. My dad slowly came back into contact with me over time, and things felt like they were going back to normal. Until I got a text message from my friend telling me my dad was blowing up his phone and saying he hated him for stealing his daughter's virginity, which is not what happened. I am a 24-year-old female living completely independent with no help from my family. I mean, I don't need to tell my dad about my sex life. It isn't his business. I already lost my V-card, but he doesn't need to know that, and it's not his business. Anyway, continuing, I said something though because he kept accusing my friend of stealing it. So I texted my dad, and this was the text exchange, and I am now completely no contact. That was his second chance. After everything I've been through, he will not be getting another one. But I texted him saying, Dad, David didn't take my virginity. What the hell is wrong with you? I never told you I slept with him. I never told you I had sex with him. All I said was it could lead to a pregnancy the way things were going. I never once said that I slept with him. Stop whatever crazy tirade you're doing because you hate him for taking my virginity when you don't even know. This is disrespectful to me that you are speaking like this about me. You're hurt, you say? This is hurting my feelings a lot more, thinking that my dad thinks I'm an S-word. And going off more on my friend David is by no means going to help the situation. Ignore him and leave him alone. Imagine how my dad is now that while I'm at work, I randomly get a text message that my dad thinks David stole my virginity. It makes me feel dirty that you are even speaking to someone about my virginity. It is none of your concern, and it is between me and God. You don't know, nor will you ever know who takes my virginity or not, and that is not for you to decide other than me when I am ready and married. Talking to David about this stuff isn't going to make him magically want me. It's going to push him away even more from me. You need to literally stop and just vent your feelings somewhere else. I don't want to be in a position again where I'm choosing between people. Stop being like this. And that was the string of text messages I sent my dad, to which he replied with, OP, the conversation I'm having with him is between us. I'm only saying what hurt me and your mother, and we should be able to share that with David. This part is none of your business. If you don't like it, you don't have to be around me and your mom. Trying to make things right with David to restore everything, and that involves the truth. Otherwise, I will go back right where we were, which is not having a relationship with you guys until you are ready to get it right. You threatened me and your mom, acting like we were begging you to come back to church, but that is not the truth. The truth is, we were letting you guys cook. From your responses to me, clearly you are not done. If you want to run off and do what you want to do, go for it. It's going to be hurtful and painful out there. It's literally none of my concern at this point, and everything I said to David was supposed to be between him and I, and it was solely focused on how he hurt me and your mother, and how to get back to where he was with us. Nothing to do with you. Also, I only read your first text, and I will read the rest of it when I have time.
Dad, do not discuss my virginity. He didn't take my virginity. I don't care what you think or assume, he didn't take it. And don't claim that he did.
OP, do not tell me what to discuss. My assumption was he did take it, and that hurt me as a father, especially from him who I trusted. Believe it or not, I have my own feelings, and in order for me to get right with him, I have to express the feelings that I have. Don't tell me to stuff my feelings.
Well, you don't have any right to discuss my body, my virginity, my anything, Dad. That is me.
Well, when you're ready to talk to me as your father, then we will talk. Otherwise, don't text me no more.
Well, you can talk about me as a daughter, not someone else's sex toy.
The reason I'm saying that is because you're bringing fire instead of actually trying to understand my perspective. That's not what I was doing, if you read my text.
Dad, you're telling my friend that you hated him in the moment because he stole my virginity. Forgive and forget and move on. He didn't steal my virginity. He didn't take my virginity. I didn't give him my virginity. Your perspective is wrong.
These are my exact words, and this is the last time I will share with you what I am speaking to him in private about.
Dad, I don't care what the rest of your stuff you think. That part, you are very wrong.
This is the message I sent to David. It says, Proverbs 28:13. He who covers his sins will not prosper, but whoever confesses and forsakes them will have mercy. David, I hated you after you turned your back on my peace that I offered you at Disneyland, and I hated you even more when you took my daughter's virginity without committing to her. The Bible says that if I hate another, I have committed murder. And so I confessed to the Lord my sins, and he forgave me and encouraged me to love you, even though you took something from me that was one of the most important things that my daughter had, and that I wanted to give to her husband. You also did it under my nose, and I called you son. I'm sorry that I hated you, David. I also called you a coward, but you're not a coward. I choose to believe that you were just afraid, and you are still afraid to make things right with me. There's a big difference between being a coward and being afraid. I feel sorry for you, and your fear takes over and cripples you. But you must, through Christ, overcome this giant.
Dad, I don't need to see anything else. He didn't take my virginity. So if you want to actually fully restore that relationship, make sure you don't accuse people of something they didn't do.
Then don't bother me if you don't care. Fine, I'll never speak to him again. I don't want you around me either because you bring drama into my life. I will not be responding anymore because you don't want to care about your mother and I, and all you care about is your own selfish ambitions. Goodbye, OP.
I said I don't need to see anything else, meaning I just want to make sure I'm not being slandered. Accusing someone of taking my virginity is a big thing, Dad. I do care, meaning I don't need to see the rest of the private conversations between you and him.
I mean it, OP. Don't come around me and don't speak with me anymore. I'm done with you. You are partially to blame for the loss of David in my life, and he is the other half of it. I don't want to see him or you, and I'm done being kind to your stupid ways. You can come back with me right now with fire, but just know that I don't care anymore, and that was the last straw.
And then finally, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, OP, you're responding way too much to this. Your father is disgusting, and the fact that you have 10 pages of screenshots defending your virginity to him is too much.
It was more so trying to defend my friend in the best way I could think of. And at the time, I was emotional. So yeah, I did respond way too much, I agree. I am completely no contact now.
Then user 2 commented and said, Geez, I remember this story. It's absolutely wild that you are a fully formed whole-ass adult and he and they think you aren't capable of going out with friends without supervision. You've given them all the chances they are ever going to get now, right?
Yeah, One of the biggest things holding me back from no contact was my brother. He's 22, still living with them, and when I initially did no contact, my dad told my brother he had to go no contact with me as well or he would get kicked out. For my little brother's safety, I tried to make it work, but this made me sick to my stomach. My brother understands though, and we found out a way to be secretly in communication. We are looking for a place for him, and if worst comes to worst, we are going to get an apartment together because he wants to cut ties with our dad as well. And then finally, user 3 commented and said,
OP, if you're not ready, you may find some catharsis from the ex-evangelical subreddit. I think there's also a sub for pastor's kids somewhere, in case that's relevant. He certainly sounds like the type.
My dad is not a pastor, but even our pastor at our church thinks he's a psycho. And then finally, OP elaborated on the friendship and said, I'm still close with David. He knows I'm not doing this, and my dad is the crazy one. It's my dad that I am done with.
So, everybody, I had to pull out all the voices for this one. If there was anyone else involved, I would have to start pulling out accents. But we've read this story a long time ago, so if people say, is this a repost? That's why, because we got a new update. And holy drama. I really don't see how any reasonable human being could defend the father here, especially after the abuse allegations, which he is definitely not beating. Even the pastor, who is supposed to forgive and love everyone, is like, yeah, this dude's probably insane. Or actually, correction, this dude is insane and beats his child, probably his wife too, and most definitely not his meat because he's impotent. And then stalking and tracking your daughter and saying it's because God is watching and not giving a real answer is just absolutely disgusting and ridiculous. I haven't recommended it in a while, but I definitely feel like OP could use some therapy. I'm glad that the pastor and his wife are on OP's side, but I feel like she could use like some real help from a shrink or something to overcome just all the emotional baggage and garbage that the dad has put into her brain. She's starting to do that unwiring and has made great progress, but I feel like there's still a lot more work to be done because, oh my god, where do you even start with this dad? But anyway, guys, we are at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching, commenting. Have a really good day, and bye-bye!